everybody. What a great crowd.
I missed the news.
What's that? I'm the MLA
I missed it.
Oh, you're Sergeant of Arms. No.
Belle Isle Ferry a few years ago.
You're not going to get
take that out of service. But you came to our support us in that vein. So we're here to support you.
Hey, Ross.
This is about, we're all about.
What did you say? I missed it.
I'll be out a little later.
Okay.
The 8 ferries that are left in the system serve most of my riding, and that ferry that we're talking about for $869,000, we can do better than that. We have to sit down, we have to get together with all levels of government and make sure that we have a system on the river that meets our needs. Not the needs of government, the needs of the people.
Yes! Yes!
Thank you very much for coming. Appreciate your time.
All right then, well, not to give up the chance to have a microphone to say hello to the good people of Queens County and beyond. Boys, oh boys, I was just itching to come up and say hello because I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud, and people in this crowd know, people like Von Blaney know, that we and you have fought the closure of this ferry before, and you have won before, and I can tell you, you band together, you're going to win again. And how offensive that not one minister, if the Premier is gallivanting around the country, around the world, how offensive that not at least one government Liberal minister can't come out here and say something. Where are they? Are they ashamed of their decision? Do they stand by their decision? Or will they listen to the people of Queens County, of Gagetown and beyond, and put the Gagetown Ferry back? Listen to the people of rural New Brunswick. How offensive! And Will told us the numbers, and Wilf is right. Von Blaney, Jody Carr, Ross Wetmore, you know the truth. The truth is this Gagetown Ferry is operating well. Gagetown Ferry is stable. Gagetown Ferry meets standards. Stop the lies and put the Gagetown Ferry back. We don't want this to be political, but we'll stop being political when the Liberals come out here and say something and stand up and answer for their decisions. If they can't answer to their decisions, well then we're going to hold them to account, and they're not out here to answer, but Ross Wetmore's gone inside to make them answer on the floor of the legislature, one way or the other. And finally, I know you won't give up. I know you won't give up because of the people before you that had to fight. The people that relied on this Gagetown Ferry and that continue to rely on it. People like Stan Dykeman. Yeah. People like Tom Scoville. These are our family, these are our ancestors, these are the people that have taught us respect, livelihood, neighbors, building our communities, and you're carrying that on today. Our Mayor Mike Blaney, our MLA Ross Wetmore, all of you working together, don't give up. If they won't listen, you just yell louder. Right now is the time to just yell louder and tell them that we mean business. This is important to our community. You're coming up with solutions. They need to listen. That's their job, and we're there behind you to make this happen and make sure that Gagetown thrives, that New Brunswick thrives by listening and working together. Thank you. Keep up the good work. Keep it up. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Jody. Okay, folks, I think we're at the point where we need another good number of minutes of chanting. We just heard the Premier has sat down in his seat, so there's just a couple walls separating us. Let's do it loud and let's be clear. Let's turn the speakers around.
Watching. They got people out here.
Okay, on the count of 3, we want the Premier. 1, 2, 3. We want the Premier. 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 Good and loud. Premier. We want the Premier. We want the Premier. We want the Premier.
That was
we want the Premier.
The leadership.
We want the Premier. 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 Good and loud. We want the Premier. 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 We want the Premier now. We want the Premier. 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 Louder. We want the Premier. 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 We want the Premier.